So Zambia is not exactly the kind of place you want to fall ill. So when I caught infection in both my eyes, I wasn't keen to go find a doctor. Effectively blind, I could only open my eyes for a second or two at a time, and I needed somebody to guide me around. Thankfully, my friend and fellow backpacker Than was there to guide me, and we had the foresight to pack antibiotics and even hypodermic needles for just such occasions. But note to self, don't forget to take your contacts out in Africa. So there I am, standing, eyes closed, in a parking lot, waiting for the bus to take us to our next destination, Malawi. And it arrives, and I briefly get a glimpse of it and feel a sense of relief. It's a brand new bus, and this is a bit of a luxury for a backpacker in Africa, so I figure we can rest and I can recover on the trip. 2 hours later, we're careening at high speed. I see flashes of rain, steep mountain ravines, windy roads. A kung fu movie is blasting to this point of distortion on the speakers, and I'm being flung violently side to side. One moment pinned to Than's shoulder, the next flung against the windowsill of the bus. And at some point I turn to Than and I say, I think this time we might actually die. You see, backpacking in Africa is really just a series of decisions that you never know how they're going to go. Is it going to be good? Are there going to be delays? Am I going to get frustrated? It's always a roll of the dice. So eventually we make it to the capital of Malawi. And Malawi, if you don't know, is a tall, narrow country in southern Africa that has a very large lake or inland sea that runs from top to bottom. Feeling better, Than and I make our way midway up the western shore and find a rundown lakeside lodge, essentially huts on the lake in the middle of nowhere. So after an uneventful day exploring, that night, Than and I are thirsty, and being in the middle of nowhere, that happens to be 2 kilometers down the darkest road you could imagine. It's a moonless night. I can't see my hand in front of my face, and we unsettlingly can hear people shuffling nearby, but we don't know who or where. But through this all, we hear this incredible sound. It's like 1,000 frogs that must be lining ponds along this dirt road. And as we walk, the sound changes. 1 minute, it sounds like 1,000 croaks. The next, it sounds like 1,000 chirps. And at one point, it sounded like 1,000 leaky faucets dripping water. And all of this is intensified by the fact that we're enveloped in pitch darkness. So next morning, we have to make our way to the top of the lake. And true to form, things don't go as planned. Our driver has run off with the deposit, gotten drunk. The lodge is ripping us off. Than is feeling ill. And the only way to a bus is 2 hours in the back of a pickup truck. And the journey doesn't get any better. 10 minutes in, a thunderstorm hits. We're lashed with rain and pelted with hail. And in the middle of this, I see Than turn his head to say something, and the wind blows his glasses off his face over the side of the truck into the rain, and it's his turn to be blind. So we make it to the bus lot. It's chaos, but we find 2 buses that say they're going north. One that says it goes all the way, and another that says it can only go halfway because there's a bridge that's been washed out. So we roll the dice and decide to take the bus going halfway. Good thing, because 10 minutes in, we pass the first bus, which has been in an accident. And then eventually, of course, we see the bridge. We get to the bridge. 2 feet of water are washing over this bridge, and the only vehicles that are daring to cross are huge cargo trucks that line either side of the river and taking turns one by one. So as we cross the river in a raft, we see one of these trucks get half washed off, dashing the hopes of all of the truck drivers and simultaneously setting off the kids on the riverside in cheers. Meanwhile, we find a van and take another perilous trek around a mountain and get to our destination. And surprisingly, it's a hillside lodge where our rooms sit on stilts above the water, and the bar sits on a cliff overlooking Lake Malawi, and it's gorgeous. So that night, Than and I are sitting up, having beers on the bar, watching out in the distance as a storm brews. And as it gets dark, that turns into a lightning show unlike anything we've ever seen. And it becomes clear that we rolled the dice and really won big. But all good things come to an end, so a couple days later, we make our way to Tanzania. After a 6-hour wait, the midnight bus arrives, and all I want is to get some sleep. Let's just say the bus isn't new. It's completely full, and the only way that we can sit is on the aisle, squeezed knees to chest. The storms from the night before are coming in, and the road ahead, the dirt road ahead, is full of potholes, and it's a 24-hour ride. But that's a story for another time. Thank you.